What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I am Kristopher R. Smith.
I'm Fuego here.
That's right, guys. We have a gentleman that is the first time he's being on camera with us. He's been on the podcast before. He will be on the podcast again. But Chris is joining us here to do another review from the Phoenix Film Festival 2017 from the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival branch of it. And Fuego, what are we talking about right now?
Today we are talking about Sequence Break, which is a mind melter of a sci-fi romantic thriller, I guess. A melding of many different genres together.
Yeah. So we're going to do this like usual. We'll talk about the movie overall, our thoughts. Then we'll talk about the story, the effects, the acting, all that good stuff in due time. But as far as my overall thoughts go, I thought it was good for some aspects, but it wasn't an overall success for me. I thought there was a lot of Cronenberg in it. There was a lot of other things that I'm sure you guys will get to,
Altered
but the Cronenberg
states
stuck out to me the most.
Especially Videodrome. This is basically a cheaper version of Videodrome.
But overall, like I said, it just didn't work as a grand whole, but there were bits and pieces that did work for me, and I'll get into that as we go. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. It was technically well made for a low-budget film, but just the influences were so heavy with it that it couldn't get away from them. It was just like, and it couldn't top them really, and it didn't just seem to get ambitious enough to really try.
That's actually a good assessment. Fuego?
I obviously liked it the most out of the three of us then. I really, really enjoyed this movie. It wore its influences on its sleeve, but I actually really liked the chemistry between the two leads and the romantic aspect. That's what really kind of pulled me in the first half, because by the second half, when it was really apparent where it was drawing its inspiration from.
That's also, like you said, Altered States, and also
all over the place.
The
Altered
Fly
States
as well. It's
Yep.
kind of a similar story.
Yep,
to that.
especially with some of the goop, as director Graham Skipper described it when he was introducing the movie here to us. But I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't like the ending, though.
Yeah.
The ending didn't work for me. So
There was okay, well, let's get into the story. Basically, we start off with a young man who is a old arcade cabinet repair guy, probably just good with electronics, but this is what he's doing right now. It's a real small mom and pop sort of arcade fixer-upper shop / sales shop. And he's helping out there all the time, but the owner comes and tells him that they're going to be shutting down, but that he's going to need him because business has not been good since arcades are going out of style, or have gone out of style at this point.
Long ago.
But he basically says, I'm going to need you to watch the place over the next couple weeks. And it's basically that night that a strange package is delivered to the shop. And when our main character discovers it the next day, it's a motherboard for an arcade cabinet. He puts it in one of their blank cabinets and plays the game, which is also apparently heavily influenced by another game. I forgot which one the director
Tempest,
mentioned.
I think
Tempest,
he
yeah.
said?
He said it was a scary version of Tempest, but the game didn't make sense to me. That was another problem I had. All the button tapping wasn't doing anything. Like, I could see the ship was moving, but there was nothing going on with the. I always thought his ship. Anyway, there was some confusing aspects of that to me.
That was something I actually didn't mind, was the design of the game and
Really?
how just the chaos of it.
Yeah.
So I didn't really care what he was doing while he was playing the game. Like, the gameplay wasn't important, but kind of just the design of it, of how it got more and more complicated with the geometric shapes. I
it was
thought that
just
did
bothering
kind
me.
of show like kind of the chaos.
But and not
happening.
only that, but the chaos increased as the
Right.
movie got. There was more geometric shapes getting involved, and then there was just by the end there was all kinds of crap everywhere, and even outside of it. So I did like the progression of the chaos. But yeah. So while he's stuck in this sort of position of having to watch his job go away, he meets this girl. And they strike up this sort of relationship, and she is trying to tell him he needs to, he should follow his dream to maybe make his game that he's always wanted to make, and and even his boss says, don't get another repair job, you're better than that. So he has all these things, all these outside influences telling him he needs to sort of take the next step in his life, and I guess the movie played as a big metaphor of whether he's going to make that decision or not. So that's the long and short of the story. And while I appreciated what he was going for, I thought that the execution failed more than succeeded.
Yeah, I thought it lacked a lot of momentum.
That
like
too.
we were seeing, even though the movie was only about 80 minutes long, it felt like we were watching the same scenes over and over. You know, he would have a nightmare sequence, and then he would wake up, and then there'd be kind of a romance sequence, then another nightmare sequence, and it kind of just cycled through. And the nightmare sequences didn't really build on each other. Like at first, they were pretty visually interesting, but it never escalated. It kind of just eventually it was just colored lights and jump cutting and flashing sound effects. It kind of never built beyond that. They were kind of underwhelming.
I agree with you.
I felt the opposite. I felt like the visuals built, especially in the third act, when they got more visceral, more frightening. I mean, it's tough not to spoil stuff, but the goop and the melting aspects and stuff, and the pulsating, and the practical work for me. And I did personally feel like it built. Now there was a lot of jump cutting and a lot of just I guess needless lighting to try to show emphasis in certain spots and whatnot, but I actually felt like the progression of the story worked well, although it did kind of hiccuped a little bit in the third act when they were trying to tie everything together, and that was where they kind of lost me. It was a very, very tail end of it, but I did feel like it was paced well enough, but then again, that's because I think certain aspects of the story worked for me that didn't seem to work for you guys.
I think the relationship aspect didn't work for me. Those characters, I just never believed that relationship.
I did.
Part of it was, I know we'll talk more about casting, but just the lead, I didn't believe him to be socially awkward at all. Because he always seemed like he was acting like he was socially awkward.
I felt
but you can tell he was like some kind of, indie actor guy doing one of his first big features, and he's a little too confident.
Well, he was in John Dies at the End, and
that's where
I recognized him from. Yeah, the Costco.
Right, and he seemed a little too bro-ish to be this kind of very nerdy, almost on the spectrum kind of guy. I just never believed it. And then she, I liked her performance. I liked the energy she brought to it, but I just thought the way she was written was way too idealized. If a really nerdy guy had the perfect girlfriend, this is exactly what she was.
That I can agree with.
And
it was too good to be true.
I didn't find her believable. And so I didn't find them believable because of that.
See, I was more on Fuego's team as far as their relationship went. Like, I thought that he was a little much with his spectrum, aspects, trying to get that across, I thought at times. But overall, I did believe sort of their chemistry. I actually thought that she was trying a little hard at times to seem like the goofy, don't care, the perfect sort of nerdy girl. I was I
think she was. They wrote her though.
I know, but that's
like
I'm
talking because I'm nervous.
It felt like that. Yeah. You could really feel that. It didn't feel like natural dialogue. It felt like nerd dialogue. But
to each their own.
But overall, I thought the acting was serviceable enough. It didn't pull me out of the story.
It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't enough to draw me in, I guess. Like you said, it didn't pull you out, but it also didn't draw me in.
See, that's the thing. The movie was of two minds. It was the relationship story, and then it was his growing obsession with this weird game. But I don't think he struck the balance well enough, and I don't think...
like in The Fly, in Altered States, that is really, it's the same sort of story. They do strike the balance in those films.
Yeah, and
this one was just trying to do that, and it's been done better 35 years ago.
Yeah, exactly, and it felt like all the times he was with the game, and like every time he goes back to the game, like it gets more intense, his play sessions, and more sexualized, and it happened three times, but it happened three times.
Yeah, and it never escalated. It was the same.
Yeah, it was the same. I guess the board started to change more, but everything that happened was the same.
They kind of just poured more goop on it.
Yeah, exactly.
At first it was an interesting image, and then they just poured more goop on it.
Yeah, and then he got sucked further in, but there was no consequence to him getting sucked further in. It's just he went further in. So that was part of the problem. Like, that didn't work for me. And then, especially towards the end, when sort of there's a split, without trying to reveal too much, but a Superman red and blue situation.
Yeah. It seemed a little gimmicky.
It was, and it didn't get across its point, I don't think. I don't know whether one was supposed to be hell and one was supposed to be the heaven or what. Like, I don't know what he was trying to get across. It felt clumsy to me. It felt too clumsy.
I felt like it was like the two despondent paths that he could have gone on. which the director kind
I
of
think
touched
it got
upon
communicated.
afterwards.
It was communicated clumsily, and just kind of in a gimmicky way. Which the director said in the Q&A that they had to rework some of the ending in post, so that could have been a consequence of that.
I think so. Yeah. I think that's probably was the case. Yeah. Now let's talk about the effects since we've talked about the goop. There was a lot. The practical effects were cool, and I especially was particularly disturbed by the sexualized arcade board and the joystick that had become like marshmallowy and goopy, and like the button was like becoming a little pleasure button.
You also haven't seen Videodrome.
No, that's true.
Which takes that further.
Okay. Well, that bothered me, so I don't know.
That was
skeeved me out to see it so much.
There was pleasure model.
There were some teenagers sitting in front of us, and they were really squirming during some of those scenes. And it's kind of like I've seen enough Japanese body horror films that it didn't affect me at all. Gotcha. I've seen it all before, and it just never really surprised me. And just once the whole movie, just once you figured out what it's trying to do, you kind of always know exactly where it's going. Gotcha. That's how I kind of felt about the whole movie.
Okay. Fuego, any final thoughts on it before we wrap this up?
Final thoughts. I love the score. The score was definitely
excellent,
reaching.
Yeah.
It was very wearing its 80s influences on its sleeve.
I'm kind of sick of that, though. I feel like the past few years we've seen it so many times, and just leaning into the nostalgia way too much. It was fun for a little while, but I've seen, just this year, I think I've seen 3 or 4 movies. There was one, Beyond the Gates, I think it's called.
Yeah, we haven't seen that yet, but
he actually starred in this with the lead, so I'm assuming maybe that's where they met, and he's like, "Hey, you should be in this movie of mine."
But yeah, it's a very similar type movie.
Right?
Barbara Crampton. I think this movie was better made, but it's a similar kind of thing. And at some point, it's kind of just nerds wanting to talk about nerdy things they like, which is fine, but it just at some point it's just kind of like cinematic masturbation. It's not really reaching for anything new.
I felt a little bit like that.
It does make sense though, because all these kids that were born in the early 80s or grew up in the early 80s, now they've grown up and they're making their own films, and they want to reach back to that, for better or for worse.
I grew up with those things too, but at some point it's kind of you're just recycling things you already like instead of trying to really do something new with it.
And it should be said that we have varying opinions on it, but this is the second festival it premiered at. The first festival it premiered at, apparently it won Best in Show. So, there's obviously a lot of love for it out there. So you guys...
It's a well-made film. I think the cinematography, from a technical point of view, I think it was very well made.
I actually really like the sound design too, even outside of the score. Like the sort of the quote-unquote voice of the arcade cabinet and how it changed, like he even mentioned it at the end. But I noticed it during the film. That was good and creepy. The sound design got me more than anything else in this movie.
Well, they did pair with the visual assault and audio assault as well. Whams and stuff like that, which I thought did help to get across just the discombobulation he was starting to feel there in the back half of the movie. But I'll just set the record straight. I liked it, but I didn't love it. But I do think I enjoyed it at least a little more than you guys. So,
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it, guys. Make sure you check out Sequence Break whenever you get a chance. Give it your own opinion. Let us know if it sounds interesting to you. If you have seen it, let us know what you thought of it, or if you intend to, let us know that as well. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks again to Monty and Jason from the Phoenix Film Festival, the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival, as well as Patrick from Allied. We couldn't have done this coverage without you guys, so we greatly appreciate it. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Kristopher R. Smith.
Gracias, Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.